other less visible networks of solidarity, especially prison networks, whose political claims are made through forms of solidarity that may or may not directly appear in public space. On the other hand, there are mobilizations that emerge in public that make their claims through action, gesture, language, movement, through linking arms, through refusing to move, to forming bodily modes of obstruction to police and state authorities. A given movement can move in and out of the space of heightened public exposure, depending on its strategies and the military and police threats it must face. Militant and plural exposure is the site where need and resistance converge. To return to the beginning then, how are we to understand what makes assemblies possible and what makes them effective? It is not, I would suggest, exclusively or primarily as subjects bearing abstract rights that we take to the streets. If we bear those rights to freedom of assembly, to constitute ourselves as a people, then we enact them in our bodily practices. They may well be stated, but the statement is already in the assembly, signified by plural bodies coming together before anyone has to speak, or by bodies undergoing resistance in different cells and across continents at the same time, the transcontinental hunger strike. We take to the streets if we have the power to do so because we need to walk or move there. We need streets to be structured so that whether or not we require technical assistance, we can move there, pass through that space without obstruction, harassment, administrative detention, fear of injury or death. If we are on the streets, it's because the streets define us politically as beings who must lay claim to public freedom. But it is also because we are bodies who require government commitment to public space, infrastructural support, social service for our continuing existence. Mobility is itself a right of the body, to be sure. It is also a precondition for the exercise of other rights, including the right of assembly. Assembly is at once the condition of any possible claim, at the same time that it is a specific right to which an assembly lays claim, which is why an assembly articulates some fundamental dimension of democratic life prior to, apart from, making any verbal claim. Finally, let us remember that every claim we make to the public sphere is haunted by the prison and anticipates the prison. In other words, here in Gezi and in other parks or other streets, you have been detained and arrested, or you are close to people who have been detained and arrested. That is now the risk of appearing in public. And those medical professionals who came to help you have been arrested for trying to help you, and those lawyers who sought to defend your rights of assembly and expression have been detained and arrested for doing so. And those human rights workers who sought to bring these crimes to the broader international public have also been detained or threatened with arrest. And those people in the media who sought to make known what has happened here have also been censored, detained, and arrested. This means that wherever the people seek to make the public space their own, an emblem of popular sovereignty, you risk being stopped, injured, or imprisoned by the police who represent state power. This means that when we think about public assembly, we are always thinking about the police power that lets it happen, that stops it from happening, the moment in which the state starts to attack the people it is supposed to represent and whose rights it is entrusted to protect. This means that forms of solidarity with political prisoners, indeed with all people incarcerated under unjust conditions, means that solidarity has to happen across the public sphere and the sphere of confinement. Prisoners are precisely those who are denied freedom of assembly and access to public space, so the very government movement to privatize state parks and to allow privatization to take the place of public goods and public rights is at once a movement to establish police control over public space. There is no more effective way to do this than by imprisoning those who claim the right to public space. And they do this through expelling protesters who seek to claim the public sphere for the public, for the people. That is one way to understand the arrest and detention of those who have fought the state as it wages its war on public life. For us, I think this means that forms of solidarity can never be restricted to public assembly alone, since prisoner networks are forms of solidarity that are built in confinement. and it is their ability to move freely in public and to express and enact their political claims to the public, for which we also have to struggle. So it seems we have to understand every public space is haunted by the police station and the police and the prison, and that to walk and move and speak there in concert is precisely to come up against the possibility of being forbidden access to that common world. If privatization seeks to destroy public space, so prison is the ultimate way of barring access to public space. In this sense, privatization and prison work together to keep you out of the places where you know that you belong to each other. No one can have the right to public assembly alone. As any of us claim that right, as we must, we have to do it with one another, in the midst of all our differences and disagreements, and in solidarity with those who have already lost that right, or who have never been recognized as belonging to that public. This is especially true for those who appear on the street without permits, who are opposing the police or the military, or other security forces without weapons, who are transgendered in transphobic environments, who are without documents in countries that seek to criminalize those who ask for rights of citizenship. Although one may be shorn of protection, one is not reduced to some sort of bare life. It's not insult or subjugated with that particular term. On the contrary, to be shorn of protection is a form of political exposure at once concretely vulnerable, even breakable, and potentially and actively defiant, even revolutionary. The bodies that assemble together designate and form themselves as we the people, targeting those forms of abstraction that would act as if those social and bodily requirements for life can be destroyed for the sake of neoliberal metrics and market rationalities. To show up in an assembly opposed to such destitution is to be exposed, is to be defiant, meaning precisely that we are crafted precisely in that disjuncture. In crafting ourselves, we expose, we do the bodies in the name of which we make our demand. We do this for and with one another without any necessary presumption of harmony or of love. We do not have to know each other to make this demand for one another. No body is possible without those other bodies, linked, we might say, by the arm, or linked, we might say, in the name of another concept of democracy that demands new forms of solidarity on and off the street. Thank you.